Take the good wool sweater out of the drawer and hold it up to the window. The color is still right. The shape is still right. But across the chest, and worse down the sides where your arms hang, and worst of all under the arms themselves, the surface is covered in small, hard balls. Some are the size of a pinhead. Some are the size of a peppercorn, dense and matted, and a slightly darker shade than the sweater, because they have picked up dust and lint from everything you have brushed against. Run your palm across the front and it catches instead of gliding. 3 winters ago, the same sweater came out of the bag with a surface like the skin of a peach. So you do the 3 things everyone does. You pick at the worst ones with your fingernails while sitting in the car. You buy a battery-powered fabric shaver, use it once, and get an afternoon of improvement. And then it starts living in the back of the closet, and eventually you buy another one. And a $3 pumice stone from the foot care aisle of the drugstore is going to be what takes every one of those off in about 10 minutes. It will not damage the wool, and the reason has to do with what a pill actually is. That will make no sense yet. It is not that the sweater is cheap. Look at where the pills are. Under the arms, down the sides, across the front where a seatbelt crosses, on the forearms where they rest on a desk. Those are not random locations. Those are the exact places where fabric rubs against something all day, and no sweater at any price is exempt from friction. Those balls are not lint that landed on the sweater. They are the sweater. They are made of its own wool, and they are still attached to it. And the tool you bought to remove them is the reason they came back thicker. There is a way to take every one off in about 10 minutes, with no cutting of any kind, and the sweater comes out smoother than it has been in years. It costs $3, and there is one requirement about the surface you do it on that most people get wrong, and that decides whether you clean the sweater or put a hole in it. Here is what is actually happening in that knit. Yarn is not one continuous strand. It is thousands of short fibers, twisted together, and every one of those fibers has 2 ends. Most of those ends are trapped inside the twist. Some sit at the surface. Friction works those surface ends loose. Every time your arm brushes your side, a few fibers slide a fraction further out of the yarn. Over a season, thousands of them are standing proud of the surface. Then continued rubbing tangles them together, and a tangle of fibers under constant friction rolls itself into a dense ball. That is a pill. Think about a knot forming in long hair. The knot is not something that landed on your head. It is your own hair, tangling with itself, and it is still attached at the roots. That is exactly what a pill is, and it is anchored to the yarn by a small number of fibers that never came all the way out. Which brings us to the tool almost everyone buys, and to the sentence that explains why your sweater got worse rather than better. A fabric shaver has a spinning blade behind a perforated screen. Pills poke through the holes, and the blade cuts them off flush. It works, in the moment, and the results look impressive. But look at what it left behind. Every one of those anchor fibers has been cut, and a cut fiber has a fresh free end sitting right at the surface of the fabric. So the shaver did not remove loose fiber. It manufactured it, in the thousands, in one pass. The sweater pills again faster than it did before, and each time you shave it, you also remove a thin layer of the wool itself, which is why heavily shaved sweaters go thin and slightly transparent at the elbows and under the arms. The sweater was not ruined by pilling. It was ruined by the device you bought to remove the pills. If that just explained why the shaver worked once and then stopped keeping up, subscribe now, because what comes next removes them without cutting anything, and it costs $3. The first method is abrasion with pumice, and the whole thing takes 10 minutes. Understand why it works before you start. A pumice stone is volcanic rock full of open pores, and its surface is a field of tiny sharp edges and hollows. Drawn across a knit, those pores catch the pills, and because a pill is only held by a few fibers, it rolls up into the stone and comes away whole rather than being sliced. The flat surface of the fabric, where the fibers are all lying down and locked into the twist, has nothing standing up for the stone to catch. So the stone finds the pills and largely ignores everything else. That is the entire principle, and it is why this is gentler than a blade, despite feeling rougher in your hand. You can buy a product sold as a sweater stone, which is the same material at 3 times the price. A plain pumice stone from the foot care aisle costs about $3 and works identically. Rinse it and let it dry completely before the first use. Now the part that matters more than the stone. Lay the sweater on a hard, flat, unyielding surface. A dining table, a countertop, a cutting board for smaller sections. Not a bed, not the arm of a sofa, and not your lap. This is the step people skip, and it is the difference between a clean sweater and a hole. If the surface underneath has any give, the knit lifts into the stone as it passes, and a lifted loop can be caught and dragged. On a hard surface, the fabric stays flat, and only what stands above the plane gets touched. Smooth the section you are working on so it lies flat with no wrinkles and slight tension across it. Hold the fabric taut with your free hand, about 6 inches from where the stone is working, and keep it there. Slack fabric bunches ahead of the stone, and bunched fabric is what tears. Now work in sections about 6 inches square. Short strokes, 3 to 4 inches long, always in the same direction, and always with light pressure. The weight of the stone is enough. Pressing harder does not remove more pills. It simply presses the knit into the pores where it can snag. Go over each section 4 or 5 times, then stop and brush the loosened material away with your hand. You will see a gray mat of removed pills gathering, and it will look like far more material than you expected. That is normal. Do the flat panels first. The chest, the back, the outer sleeves. Save the underarms and the sides for last, because those are the most worn areas. The fabric there is thinnest, and by the time you reach them, you will have your pressure and your rhythm calibrated. 10 minutes for a whole sweater. Work over a trash bag or outside, because it produces a surprising amount of fine fiber dust. Then stop and look at it in good light, and here is what you may see, particularly if the sweater is fine, merino, or cashmere. The pills will be gone, and a soft new fuzz will have been raised in their place, so the surface looks slightly hazy rather than smooth. That is the stone being too aggressive for the fineness of that yarn. The second method is for exactly that, and it takes longer, but it can be used on anything. Get a sweater comb. It is a small metal plate with rows of fine teeth, usually with a handle, and it costs under $10. Some are sold as cashmere combs. What it does is different from what the stone does. Instead of catching and rolling the pill off, the teeth pass under the pill, snag the anchor fibers, and lift the whole ball away from the surface as a unit. Same preparation. Hard, flat surface, fabric held taut, work in sections. Hold the comb at a low angle, close to flat against the fabric rather than upright, and pull it toward you in short strokes. Upright is what catches loops. Low and shallow is what catches pills. Clean the teeth every 5 or 6 strokes. A loaded comb stops working and starts dragging, and dragging is what pulls threads. On cashmere and fine merino, this takes 20 to 30 minutes for a sweater rather than 10, and it is worth every minute of it because those are the garments that cost the most and tolerate the least. There is a free alternative worth knowing. The hook side of a strip of hook and loop tape, the stiff side, wrapped around a block of wood, catches pills the same way a comb does. It is cruder and it works. But everything so far is removal, and removal is a response to a problem that has already happened. There is a step that prevents most of it. It takes 2 minutes, and it comes from a garment tradition where this thinking has been standard for centuries. The third method is brushing, and here is the honest part first. A wool sweater is not a Japanese object. Japan's great textile traditions are silk, cotton, hemp, and rami, and there is no historical Japanese wool knitwear practice to appeal to. Anyone telling you otherwise is inventing it. What is genuinely Japanese and directly relevant is how a kimono is cared for. A silk kimono is not washed after each wearing. It is aired, it is brushed, it is allowed to rest, and it is folded flat along its own seams and stored in a breathable paper folder made for the purpose. The garment is maintained continuously in small amounts rather than cleaned aggressively at intervals. That is the idea that transfers, and it transfers exactly. Here is the mechanism it exploits. A pill does not form in one step. First fibers work loose and stand up. Only later do the standing fibers tangle into a ball. Between those 2 stages there is a window, and in that window the loose fiber can simply be removed before it ever becomes anything. So after each wearing, lay the sweater flat and brush it with a soft, natural bristle garment brush. Boar bristle is the traditional choice, and a brush costs around $15. Short strokes, always in one direction, following the direction the knit lies. 2 minutes for the whole garment. The brush lifts out the fibers that have worked loose that day and carries away the dust and lint that would otherwise be woven into the next pill. It also realigns the surface fibers so they lie down flat rather than standing up waiting to tangle. A sweater brushed after every wearing will pill a fraction as much as the same sweater left alone. This is the highest return 2 minutes in this entire video. All of this belongs to one larger system. If you want the complete Japanese method for a home where things are maintained instead of replaced, the book is linked in the description, and it is there if you want it. The fourth method is how the sweater gets washed, because a washing machine can undo a season of careful brushing in 40 minutes. Pilling is caused by friction, and the inside of a washing machine is a friction chamber. Fabric tumbling against fabric, against the drum, against a zipper on something else in the load. A wool sweater in a normal cycle receives more abrasion in one wash than in a month of wearing, so wash it rarely. Wool is naturally resistant to odor and does not need washing after every wearing the way a cotton shirt does. 3 or 4 times a season is normal for a sweater worn over other layers. When you do wash it, turn it inside out first, so the friction lands on the surface nobody sees. Put it in a mesh laundry bag, which limits how much it can move against everything else. Wash cold, on a wool or delicate cycle with minimal agitation, or by hand in a basin with 10 minutes of soaking and gentle squeezing and no rubbing. Use a detergent made for wool, and this is not a marketing distinction. Wool is a protein fiber, and most regular detergents contain protease, an enzyme whose entire function is to break down protein. Protease does not know the difference between a protein stain and a protein garment. Every wash in enzyme detergent digests a little of the fiber surface, which weakens it, which makes it work loose more easily, which is more pilling. Check the label for the word enzymes and avoid it for anything wool or silk. Never wring it. Press the water out between 2 towels. And never put wool in a tumble dryer. Wool fibers are covered in microscopic overlapping scales, and heat and agitation together cause those scales to interlock permanently. That is felting. It is irreversible, and it is how a sweater comes out of a dryer 3 sizes smaller and stiff as felt, which is precisely what it now is. Dry it flat, on a towel, out of direct sun, reshaped by hand while damp. The fifth method is not a technique. It is a rule, and it has 2 halves. Never wear the same sweater 2 days in a row. Wool fibers are elastic, and they recover from being compressed and bent, but recovery takes time, roughly a day. A fiber that is put back under load before it has recovered stays deformed, and deformed fibers work loose faster than resilient ones. Rotation between 3 or 4 sweaters across a winter does not just spread the wear across 3 or 4 garments. It reduces the total damage to each one below what the same number of wearings would cause back to back. The second half is storage, and it costs nothing. Fold knitwear, never hang it. A hanger concentrates the entire weight of the garment on 2 narrow points at the shoulders, and wool under sustained tension stretches and does not come back. Fold it along the seams and stack it. Store it clean. Clothes moths do not eat clean wool with much enthusiasm. What attracts them is wool, carrying body oil, sweat, and food residue, so the sweater you shove into a bin in April without washing is the one that comes out in October with holes in it. Wash before storage, always, and store in breathable cotton rather than in a sealed plastic bin, which traps humidity against the fiber. Before the part of this video that will save you the most money, if you have not subscribed yet, this is the moment. Now the things that do not work, and the specific reason each one fails. The battery-powered fabric shaver, worth being fair about, because it does remove pills and it is fast. The problem is what it leaves. It cuts through the anchor fibers and through the standing fibers at the surface, producing thousands of fresh cut ends in a single pass, and those ends are the raw material for the next round of pilling. It also removes a thin layer of the fabric each time, so a sweater shaved every few months visibly thins where you shave it most, which is the underarms and elbows, which is exactly where the fabric was already weakest. And a shaver with the guard set too close or used on a loose knit will cut straight through the yarn and open a hole that has to be darned. A disposable razor. Everything above. Worse, with no screen to control the depth and a blade that catches loops. This is the fastest way to put a hole in a sweater that exists: a lint roller or tape wrapped around your hand. These lift loose surface debris, and they do nothing at all to a pill, because a pill is anchored. You will remove the dust and leave every ball exactly where it was. Scissors, snipping each pill individually. This produces the same cut anchor fiber that a shaver produces, one pill at a time, at perhaps 200 times the effort. It also puts blade tips against the knit repeatedly, and eventually one of them catches a loop. Pulling pills off with your fingers. This one feels like the safe option, and it is among the worst. A pill is held by fibers that are still embedded in the yarn, so pulling it does not detach the pill. It drags those fibers further out of the twist. You have loosened the yarn, created new loose ends, and slightly opened the knit at that point. Do it enough across one area, and the fabric there goes thin and fuzzy. Fabric softener, used as a pilling preventive. It lubricates fibers slightly, which is the basis of the claim. It also coats wool with a waxy film that flattens its loft, reduces its ability to handle moisture, and builds up with each wash. Whatever small friction benefit it offers is not worth what it does to the fiber, and it does nothing about the pills already there. Putting the sweater in the freezer. This circulates for everything from odor to pilling, and it does nothing to a pill under any circumstances. There is no mechanism. And washing it more often to clean the pills off. Every wash is friction, and friction is the cause. Washing a pilled sweater more frequently, reliably makes it worse, and there is no version of this that works. So what should you buy? Because the difference between a sweater that pills badly and one that barely pills at all is decided before you pay for it. The most important thing to look at is the yarn, not the fiber content. Worsted yarn is spun from long fibers, combed parallel and twisted tightly, and it produces a smooth, dense surface with very few fiber ends exposed. Woolen spun yarn is lofty, soft, airy, and full of short fibers pointing in all directions. Woolen spun feels wonderful in the shop and pills substantially more. If the label says worsted, or the yarn looks smooth and tightly twisted rather than fuzzy, it will pill less. Look at the ply. A 2-ply or 3-ply yarn is twisted around itself and holds its fibers in. Single ply is soft and releases them. And here is the one that surprises people. Cashmere pills readily, and price does not protect you. Cashmere fibers are extremely fine and relatively short, and short fine fibers work loose more easily than long ones. Good cashmere is graded on fiber length as well as fineness, and a 2-ply long staple cashmere pills far less than a cheap single-ply one, but no cashmere is pill-proof. Then there is the counterintuitive one about blends. A small percentage of nylon is added to wool for abrasion resistance, and it does make the garment last longer overall. But nylon is strong, so when a pill forms, the anchor fibers do not break, and the pill stays on the garment permanently. Pure wool anchor fibers are weaker and eventually snap, so a 100% wool sweater sheds many of its own pills over time. The blend pills less at the start and keeps every pill it makes. Acrylic is the worst of both, being strong, short, stapled, and prone to pilling all at once. There is a test you can run in the store in 10 seconds. Rub the fabric briskly against itself, cuff against cuff, for about 10 seconds, and look at the surface. If fuzz stands up immediately, that garment will pill in weeks. Now the honest limits. This removes pills. It does not put back wool that has already been cut away. If a sweater has been shaved repeatedly and is thin at the elbows, it will look better and it will still be thin. Where pills have matted into a hard felted patch, usually under the arms, removing them can reveal a compacted, slightly shiny surface underneath that does not match the rest of the garment. The pills come off. The wear does not unhappen. A sweater that is already felted from a hot wash or a dryer cycle cannot be recovered. The scales have interlocked and there is no process that separates them again. And be clear about the largest limit. This is maintenance, not a cure. Pilling is caused by friction. You will keep wearing the sweater, and it will pill again. What changes is the rate. Brushed after wearing, washed correctly, and rotated, a sweater might need the stone once a season instead of looking ruined by January. Safety is brief. Test the stone on a hidden area first. The inside of the hem is ideal, before you touch the front of a sweater you care about. Do not use pumice on lace knits, open weaves, or anything loosely constructed, since there is too much space between stitches for the stone to bridge. Work in strong light so you can see what the fabric is doing. And do this over a bag or outdoors, because the fiber dust is fine, it goes everywhere, and it is not something to be breathing for 10 minutes in a closed room. So, the whole sequence. Lay the sweater flat on a hard, unyielding surface, hold it taut, and work a $3 pumice stone across it in short strokes in one direction with light pressure. 10 minutes for the garment. Underarms last. On fine merino and cashmere use, a sweater comb held at a low angle instead, and clean the teeth every few strokes. Brush the sweater with a soft, natural bristle brush for 2 minutes after every wearing, which removes loose fiber before it can tangle into anything. Wash it rarely, inside out, in a mesh bag, cold, in a detergent with no enzymes, and dry it flat. And never wear it 2 days running, never hang it, and never store it dirty. The same thinking, applied to everything else you own, is in the book linked below. What you get is not a sweater with the pills cut off level. It is a sweater with the pills actually removed and far fewer of them coming back, which is a different result. Now look at the same sweater again, at the cuffs and the neckline. They have gone slack and wavy. The cuffs no longer grip your wrists, and the collar sits wider than it did. The standard American answer is to hang it up so it does not get creased. And that is precisely what caused it, because a hanger puts the whole weight of the garment on 2 points in wool under steady tension stretches and stays stretched. Wool has a memory, and there is a way to call it back that takes about 15 minutes and needs nothing but water and heat. That is the next video. See you in the next one.